Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when a single gesture, a fleeting expression, can alter the course of our existence. A smile, a simple curve of the lips, an unspoken message that transcends words, yet carries with it the potential to shift our entire world. Today, I want to share with you how one smile can change everything, viewed through the lens of Stoic philosophy. A philosophy rooted in understanding our emotions, controlling our reactions, and embracing life's moments with wisdom. Our perception of the world around us is one of the most powerful forces in shaping the reality we live in. The Stoic philosophers understood that external events and circumstances do not dictate our emotions or actions. Rather, it is our internal response to them that defines our experience. This fundamental teaching is at the heart of Stoic philosophy, that it is not the world itself that causes our distress or joy, but how we choose to interpret and react to it. Our perception, therefore, is not merely a passive reflection of the outside world. It is an active process that can transform our reality. The Stoics believed that we do not control the events that happen to us, but we do control how we respond to them. This is captured in the famous words of Epictetus: "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This idea underscores the power of perception, our ability to filter the world through our minds, and in doing so, to create a narrative that influences our emotions and actions. When something happens in our lives, we have a choice in how we see it. The way we interpret an event can either lead us to peace or to turmoil, depending on the lens through which we view it. Consider the simple act of someone smiling at us. It is not merely a physical gesture, it carries a multitude of possible meanings. A smile can be interpreted in countless ways, depending on our mindset, our state of mind at the moment, and our personal history with the individual. If we are predisposed to feel isolated or unloved, we might interpret a smile as a fleeting kindness, a rare moment of warmth in a cold world. If we are hopeful, we might see it as a sign of something deeper, an invitation to connection, or even a spark of potential romance. But if we are filled with suspicion or cynicism, that very same smile might be viewed with doubt, an attempt to manipulate, or a gesture that holds no true meaning at all. This ability to shape our reality through our perception is essential to understanding how Stoic philosophy can impact our lives. It is not just that we can choose to see the world differently, but that doing so can alter our emotional state and even our behavior. When we look at the events in our lives from a Stoic perspective, we are encouraged to see them not as good or bad in themselves, but as opportunities for growth and self-improvement. The Stoics teach us that we are not slaves to our emotions or circumstances. Rather, we are free to choose how we will respond to whatever life throws at us. This idea of perception is particularly powerful when it comes to how we view relationships. Often, we fall into the trap of thinking that others have the power to affect us, whether through their actions, words, or gestures. In reality, it is our perception of those actions that holds the key to our emotional freedom. A smile from someone we love, for example, might feel like a moment of joy, but only because we choose to see it as such. A smile from a stranger may evoke warmth or uncertainty, depending on how we interpret it. The smile itself is neutral, it is our perception that brings it to life. The Stoic practice of mindfulness can help us recognize how our perceptions shape our emotions. By observing our thoughts and emotions without attachment or judgment, we can learn to change the way we interpret external events. Instead of reacting impulsively, we begin to question our assumptions and the meaning we attach to things. In doing so, we gain the ability to view the world with clarity, seeing things as they truly are rather than through the distortions of our own biases and fears. In relationships, our perception often dictates how deeply we connect with others. A single smile, a fleeting glance, or a shared moment can be interpreted in many different ways depending on our mindset. The Stoics encourage us to be mindful of these moments, recognizing that the way we choose to perceive them can either lead to harmony or frustration. When we see the world and others through a Stoic lens, we are able to respond to each moment with wisdom, understanding that our perception is the key to transforming our reality. Through this lens, every interaction, no matter how small, can become an opportunity for growth, for virtue, and for deeper connection. Emotions are a natural and inherent part of the human experience. They shape the way we interact with the world, influencing our decisions, actions, and relationships. However, the Stoics believed that while emotions are a given, it is not the emotions themselves that should control us, but how we respond to them. This core principle teaches us that while we cannot always prevent emotions from arising, we do have the power to choose how we engage with them. The Stoic approach is not to suppress emotions or deny their existence, but to exercise mastery over them so that they do not rule our lives. At the heart of Stoic thought lies the distinction between passions and virtue. The Stoics did not believe that all emotions were inherently bad or to be avoided. Instead, they categorized emotions as either helpful or unhelpful to our well-being and moral development. Emotions that arise from reason, self-control, and virtue are seen as appropriate and beneficial. These include emotions like love, joy, and compassion when they are aligned with our rational understanding of the world. On the other hand, emotions that stem from irrational impulses, fears, or desires for things beyond our control are considered passions, and these are the ones we must learn to manage. Take, for example, the feeling of anger. Anger, when it arises from a sense of injustice or a violation of one's moral beliefs, can be a powerful motivator for action. However, unchecked anger, especially when it is fueled by pride or frustration with things beyond our control, becomes destructive. The Stoic approach teaches us to examine the cause of our anger and to respond with calm reason. Anger born out of a desire to control or change what is uncontrollable, such as the actions of others, is ultimately counterproductive. The Stoics would argue that true strength lies not in the outward expression of anger, but in the ability to remain calm, rational, and focused despite feeling wronged. In relationships, emotions such as love and affection are often celebrated and cherished. Yet, even love, when approached without awareness or wisdom, can be clouded by expectations, fears, and desires that cause suffering. The Stoics would remind us that love should not be dependent on external circumstances or the actions of others. Rather, love, when grounded in virtue, should be an expression of wisdom, kindness, and mutual respect. It is not about seeking to possess or control another person, but about cultivating a shared sense of growth and understanding. If we base our emotional responses on virtue, other than on a fleeting desire for control or validation, our love can become a source of strength and peace, rather than a cause of anxiety or frustration. The Stoic view of emotions encourages us to accept that feelings are a part of being human, but emphasizes that we are not helpless in the face of them. We are not slaves to our emotions, nor should we let them govern our actions. Instead, we are called to develop the wisdom to recognize when an emotion is based on a true understanding of the world and when it is a product of irrationality. This requires constant self-reflection and mindfulness. The practice of self-reflection helps us to differentiate between emotions that are rational and constructive and those that are based on misperceptions or fears. By examining our emotions in this way, we begin to see that many of our reactions are not dictated by the situation itself, but by the stories we tell ourselves about that situation. For instance, we may feel jealousy not because someone else has something we want, but because we fear losing what we already have or feel inadequate in comparison. When we recognize these patterns, we are empowered to choose a different response, one that aligns with our rational understanding and serves our best interests. In Stoicism, emotional mastery is seen as a path to inner peace and tranquility. When we cease to be at the mercy of fleeting feelings, we free ourselves from the turmoil that often accompanies unchecked emotions. We begin to live more intentionally, responding to life with wisdom and composure rather than being tossed about by the stormy seas of our own passions. This is not to say that we become cold or indifferent. Rather, it is a call to embrace emotions with a sense of clarity and purpose, to act from a place of virtue rather than impulsivity. By practicing emotional awareness and cultivating a rational mindset, we transform our relationships with others and with ourselves. We become more capable of navigating the complexities of human emotion and are better equipped to act in ways that promote our own well-being and the well-being of those around us. In Stoic philosophy, love is seen not just as an emotion, but as a powerful expression of virtue, a force that can help guide us toward becoming better versions of ourselves. Love, in the Stoic sense, is not based on passion or fleeting desire, but on wisdom, patience, and respect for the autonomy of others. It is a love that encourages growth, not possession. It fosters connection without dependency, and it nurtures a deep understanding of what is truly good. The Stoics believed that when we approach love with this mindset, it can become a powerful catalyst for personal transformation, both for ourselves and for those with whom we share our lives. At the core of Stoic love is the idea of virtue. Virtue is the only true good, and it is through living virtuously that we find our greatest fulfillment and happiness. The Stoics believed that love, when grounded in virtue, encourages the cultivation of moral excellence in both ourselves and others. When we love someone, we should love them for who they truly are, not for what they can give us or how they make us feel. This kind of love is selfless. It does not seek to control or possess, but rather supports the other in their journey toward their own highest good. In this way, love becomes a shared pursuit of virtue and wisdom. The Stoics also emphasized the importance of seeing others as fellow travelers on the path of life. Every person we encounter is, in a way, part of the greater human community, and we are all interconnected through our shared experiences. This understanding fosters a sense of empathy and compassion, two vital components of love in the Stoic worldview. When we love someone, we do not seek to change them for our own benefit, but we seek to understand them, to support them in their own growth, and to encourage them to live in accordance with their own virtue. This is what makes love so deeply transformative. Rather than being an attachment to another person's behavior or qualities, Stoic love is an unconditional respect for their humanity and their journey. The Stoic approach to love also encourages us to practice gratitude and acceptance. In every relationship, there will be moments of difficulty and challenge, but the Stoics remind us that we cannot control the actions of others. What we can control is our own response to those actions. Love, when viewed through a Stoic lens, becomes an opportunity to practice patience and understanding, to recognize that every person has their own unique path and that our role is not to impose our will on them, but to support them in their own growth. By accepting the imperfections of others and ourselves, we find that love becomes a source of peace rather than frustration. In relationships, this perspective allows for a kind of freedom. We do not become trapped by the need to control or manipulate the emotions of the other person. Instead, we focus on nurturing a relationship built on mutual respect, where both partners are free to pursue their own virtue and growth. Love in this sense is not about attachment or dependency, but about a shared commitment to living wisely and virtuously. It is a love that empowers both individuals to be their best selves, while also allowing room for each person's individuality and autonomy. Stoic love also teaches us the importance of accepting the impermanence of all things. Nothing in life is permanent, and this includes our relationships. People change, circumstances change, and sometimes relationships evolve or end. The Stoic approach to love encourages us to appreciate and cherish our relationships in the present, knowing that their course may change over time. By accepting this truth, we are not blindsided by disappointment or loss, but are able to navigate the ebb and flow of relationships with grace and wisdom. This does not mean that we are indifferent to the people we love, or that we are not deeply affected by their presence in our lives. Rather, it means that we approach love with the understanding that all things, even love itself, are subject to change. This mindset fosters a love that is rooted in the present moment. Instead of clinging to the past or worrying about the future, we learn to appreciate and love those around us for who they are right now. It is through this acceptance of impermanence and change that we are able to love more fully and freely. We cherish the moments we have together, knowing that they are fleeting, and in doing so, we experience love with a deeper sense of gratitude and mindfulness. Through the Stoic perspective, love becomes not just an emotional attachment, but a virtue that can help us grow into better, wiser, and more compassionate individuals. It teaches us that love is not about seeking validation or fulfillment from others, but about supporting each other's journey toward wisdom, virtue, and a more meaningful life. When we approach love in this way, we open ourselves to deeper connections and create relationships that are built on a foundation of respect, empathy, and mutual growth. The Stoics offer a profound understanding of what is within our control and what is beyond our control. This distinction is central to their philosophy and is essential in living a life of tranquility, wisdom, and purpose. At the heart of Stoic thought is the idea that while we cannot control the external events that happen to us, we do have absolute control over how we respond to those events. This concept provides a roadmap for living a life that is not dictated by circumstances, but by our own actions, choices, and thoughts. It is through this lens of control and acceptance that we can navigate the challenges of life with grace and resilience. First and foremost, the Stoics teach us to recognize that external events, such as the actions of others, the weather, or the unpredictability of life are beyond our influence. We cannot control what happens to us or around us, nor can we control the thoughts and actions of other people. The Stoics refer to these things as externals, and they remind us that focusing our energy on trying to control these externals only leads to frustration and suffering. To invest our emotional energy in things beyond our control is to invite unnecessary turmoil into our lives. Instead, the Stoic approach encourages us to focus on what we can control, our own thoughts, attitudes, and actions. It is our response to the external world that shapes our experience. By focusing on what is within our control, we are empowered to act with wisdom and clarity, rather than being swept away by the tides of circumstance. This does not mean that we become indifferent or passive in the face of life's challenges. Rather, it means that we direct our energy toward what we can change, our own internal responses, and release our attachment to the outcomes of external events. This principle is particularly important in how we approach relationships, challenges, and adversity. When we find ourselves in difficult situations, whether in personal relationships or in the face of hardship, it can be easy to fall into the trap of thinking we can control how others behave or how circumstances unfold. The Stoic reminds us that this is not the case. We cannot make another person act differently or control the outcomes of a situation, but we can control how we choose to engage with it. We can control our actions, our words, and our attitude toward the situation. In doing so, we exercise the most powerful form of control, the control over ourselves. For example, in a conflict with a loved one, we may desire that the other person change their behavior, or we may feel frustration when things don't go as we expect. The Stoic perspective would advise us to examine what is within our control. We cannot control how the other person reacts, but we can control our own behavior. We can choose to respond with patience, understanding, and clarity, or we can choose to react with anger and frustration. The choice is ours. By focusing on our own actions and responses, we free ourselves from the expectation that others or circumstances must align with our desires in order for us to be content. Moreover, the Stoic ideal encourages us to accept the things we cannot control with grace and equanimity. We live in a world that is often unpredictable, where things do not always go as planned, and where our efforts may not always yield the results we expect. The Stoic teaches us to embrace this uncertainty and impermanence as part of the natural order of life. Instead of resisting or resenting what is beyond our control, we are encouraged to accept it and adapt. By doing so, we not only conserve our energy, but also open ourselves to new possibilities and solutions that we might not have otherwise seen. This acceptance does not imply resignation or passivity, but a conscious decision to focus on what is within our power, our own attitudes, decisions, and actions. The Stoics remind us that true peace comes from accepting the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. It is through this acceptance that we are able to act with wisdom and resilience, no matter the external circumstances. We are no longer tossed about by the winds of fortune, but instead are anchored in our ability to respond thoughtfully, deliberately, and virtuously. In practice, this means approaching life with a mindset of mindfulness and discernment. When faced with challenges, we ask ourselves, what can I control in this situation? What can I change about my own actions, thoughts, or attitudes? By focusing on these questions, we regain a sense of agency and empowerment, even in the face of difficulty. And through this process, we cultivate an inner strength that is unshaken by the vicissitudes of life. Ultimately, the Stoic understanding of control and acceptance leads us to a life of freedom, not a freedom from challenges, but a freedom from being enslaved to our circumstances. When we recognize that we can control how we respond, we find the peace that comes from within. We realize that we are not helpless in the face of life's uncertainties, but rather that we have the power to shape our own inner world and to live with wisdom, clarity, and purpose, regardless of what the external world may bring. The Stoic philosophy offers a deeply transformative approach to life, one that embraces the idea that relationships, when approached with wisdom and virtue, can be powerful catalysts for personal growth. While love, companionship, and connection are often seen through the lens of romantic or emotional fulfillment, the Stoics remind us that these bonds are not only opportunities for personal joy, but also for self-improvement. Relationships, in the Stoic sense, are avenues through which we can cultivate our highest virtues: patience, compassion, understanding, and resilience. By deepening our journey toward wisdom and tranquility. The Stoic understanding of transformation through love or relationships is grounded in the belief that all external relationships are mirrors that reflect back our inner selves. Each interaction, whether with a loved one, a friend, or even a stranger, offers us the opportunity to examine our reactions, to practice self-control, and to develop a deeper understanding of our own nature. Rather than seeing relationships as a means to fulfill desires or to seek validation, the Stoics view them as spaces in which we can grow and refine our character. The first way in which relationships serve as catalysts for growth is through the practice of patience and acceptance. People are inherently imperfect, and no relationship is without its challenges. Whether it is a romantic relationship, a friendship, or even a professional connection, there will be times when misunderstandings, disagreements, or frustrations arise. In these moments, the Stoic approach teaches us to respond with patience and acceptance, rather than reacting impulsively with anger, judgment, or resentment. Relationships give us the perfect opportunity to practice this restraint, allowing us to respond thoughtfully rather than being controlled by our emotions. This practice over time transforms us into more resilient, balanced individuals, capable of navigating the complexities of human connection with greater ease. Moreover, relationships provide us with a mirror in which we can observe our own weaknesses and blind spots. In our interactions with others, we are often confronted with aspects of ourselves that we may not otherwise notice: our tendencies towards selfishness, pride, impatience, or fear. It is through these encounters that we are given the chance to confront these flaws and work to overcome them. For example, a Stoic might recognize that they are reacting with jealousy or possessiveness in a relationship, and instead of indulging those emotions, they would see it as an opportunity to practice letting go of control and trusting in the other person's autonomy. Each of these moments becomes a teaching ground for self-awareness, and with each opportunity to grow, we edge closer to becoming the wise, virtuous individuals the Stoics encourage us to be. Additionally, relationships offer us the chance to practice empathy and compassion. To truly understand another person, to listen, to see the world from their perspective, and to care for their well-being is a practice in virtue. The Stoics emphasize the interconnectedness of all people and remind us that we are all part of a larger human community. When we approach our relationships with a sense of compassion and empathy, we are able to build stronger, more harmonious connections, grounded not in selfishness, but in mutual respect and understanding. In this way, relationships not only help us to grow individually, but also contribute to the greater good of society. However, the Stoics also teach us that while relationships can be a powerful tool for growth, we must also be mindful of the dangers of attachment and dependence. Stoicism encourages us to avoid becoming overly reliant on others for our happiness or sense of self-worth. This does not mean that we should shy away from love or connection, but rather that we should approach relationships with a sense of inner stability and self-sufficiency. We should love and care for others, but without the expectation that they will fulfill all of our needs or that our happiness should depend on them. This mindset not only allows for more peaceful and harmonious relationships, but also ensures that we are not swayed by the inevitable ups and downs that come with any bond. By embracing relationships as opportunities for growth, the Stoic approach to love and connection allows us to cultivate deeper, more meaningful bonds with others. We learn to love with wisdom and virtue, prioritizing the well-being of others while also working toward our own personal development. Relationships in this light become a path to self-discovery and transformation. They are not merely about finding joy in the company of others, but about growing together, supporting each other in the pursuit of wisdom, virtue, and a flourishing life. Ultimately, the Stoic philosophy teaches us that relationships, when seen through the lens of virtue, are not distractions from our personal growth, but integral parts of the journey toward becoming better individuals. They provide us with the opportunities to practice our highest virtues: patience, kindness, resilience, and wisdom, transforming both ourselves and our relationships with others. Through love and connection, we become more attuned to the truth of our shared humanity and the path to a life well lived. The Stoic approach to life teaches us that peace and happiness are not to be found in the external world, but in the internal state of our minds. It is through cultivating inner peace that we can navigate the storms of life with composure and wisdom. In this context, one of the greatest gifts we can receive is the ability to respond to life's challenges with equanimity, regardless of the circumstances. This inner tranquility, the Stoics believed, is not something that is bestowed upon us by the world or by others, but something we must develop and nurture within ourselves. By focusing on our own thoughts and actions rather than on external events, we can cultivate a sense of peace that is impervious to the unpredictability of life. The first step in this process is to recognize that our thoughts have a profound impact on our emotions. The Stoics believed that our minds are the key to our experience of the world, and that it is our interpretations of events, rather than the events themselves, that determine how we feel. This insight is encapsulated in the words of Epictetus, who said, "It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things." By shifting the focus away from external factors and turning it inward, we begin to see that we have the power to change the way we interpret the world. This shift is essential in cultivating inner peace because it enables us to detach from the constant turmoil that comes from trying to control the uncontrollable. Another important element in fostering inner peace is the acceptance of impermanence and uncertainty. Life is filled with change, and the Stoics teach us that nothing is permanent, not our relationships, our possessions, or even our own lives. Rather than fighting against this fundamental truth, Stoicism encourages us to embrace it. When we accept that all things are temporary, we can approach life with a sense of detachment, understanding that the difficulties and pleasures we encounter are part of the natural ebb and flow of existence. This mindset frees us from the anxiety that comes from trying to cling to things that are beyond our control, and allows us to approach each moment with a sense of gratitude and acceptance. The Stoic practice of mindfulness also plays a crucial role in cultivating inner peace. By being present in the moment and fully engaged with what is happening, we can reduce the mental clutter that often leads to stress and distraction. The Stoics encourage us to focus on the present rather than worrying about the future or ruminating on the past. This practice of living in the now allows us to experience life as it truly is, without the distortions created by our fears, desires, or anxieties. In doing so, we cultivate a sense of calm and clarity that enables us to make better decisions and respond to challenges with greater wisdom. Furthermore, the Stoics remind us that we are not alone in our struggles. Human beings are part of a larger community, and the challenges we face are shared by all. When we encounter difficulties, we can draw strength from the knowledge that others, too, are enduring similar trials. This sense of shared humanity fosters compassion and empathy, allowing us to approach our own struggles with greater resilience. It also helps us to see that our problems are often not as dire as they may seem, as we are part of a much larger web of interconnected lives. This perspective allows us to detach from self-centeredness and to view our challenges from a broader, more balanced viewpoint. Another important aspect of Stoic practice is the cultivation of virtues like courage, wisdom, and self-control. These virtues provide the foundation for inner peace because they enable us to act in ways that are in harmony with our deepest values. When we live according to virtue, we are not swayed by external events or the opinions of others. Instead, we are guided by our own reason and moral compass. This inner alignment brings a sense of stability and peace, even in the midst of adversity. The Stoic virtues provide us with the tools to handle life's challenges gracefully, responding with integrity and composure rather than reacting impulsively or emotionally. Finally, the Stoic idea of amor fati, the love of fate, invites us to embrace whatever happens, knowing that it is an essential part of the life we are meant to live. This attitude of acceptance helps to release us from the struggle against life's inherent uncertainties. Instead of wishing for things to be different, we learn to embrace each moment, whether it brings joy or hardship, as an opportunity for growth and learning. Through this acceptance, we free ourselves from the internal conflict that often arises when we resist the inevitable. The Stoics remind us that true peace is not found in the absence of challenges, but in our ability to face them with wisdom, acceptance, and resilience. By focusing on our inner world, our thoughts, our virtues, and our responses, we cultivate a peace that cannot be disturbed by external events. This peace is not something that is fleeting or dependent on circumstances, but something that we can sustain through mindful practice and the cultivation of virtue. It is through this inner tranquility that we find the strength to navigate life's complexities with grace, equanimity, and wisdom. In conclusion, the Stoic philosophy offers us a profound framework for living a life of peace, virtue, and emotional resilience. Through understanding that our emotions, while natural, are not to control us but to be managed with wisdom, we learn the importance of mastering our internal world. Relationships, when approached with Stoic principles, become not only a source of connection but a pathway to mutual growth, understanding, and the cultivation of virtue. The Stoics remind us that love is most transformative when rooted in wisdom, respect, and a shared commitment to living virtuously, allowing our connections to strengthen us rather than hinder us. By focusing on what is within our control, our thoughts, our actions, and our responses, we liberate ourselves from the constant striving to control the uncontrollable. Life's uncertainties, challenges, and impermanence are not threats to our peace, but invitations for growth. Through mindfulness, acceptance, and the practice of Stoic virtues, we can navigate life with clarity and calm, no matter the storms that come our way. Ultimately, the Stoic path is one of deep inner transformation. It teaches us that true happiness does not depend on external circumstances, but on the cultivation of virtue and the mastery of our own mind. When we learn to love wisely, respond to challenges with equanimity, and accept life's impermanence, we open the door to lasting peace and fulfillment. This is the wisdom of the Stoics, the wisdom that reminds us that, while we may not control what happens in the world around us, we always have the power to control how we respond to it, and in that lies our greatest strength and freedom.